SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Tired of your old tractor crying when it sees a hill? Or coughing more than Uncle Earl in pollen season? Trade up now at Sid's Trading Company. Coyote and TYM tractors so mean, they'd plow a cornfield in reverse. Uphill. Get her did at Sid's. SidsTrading.com.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday, y'all.
Finally, it is here. Man, it's been quite the exciting week. I think I calculated, I didn't go back and look at the lineups, but I think we did 20 interviews in 2 days. That sound about right?
Close to it, yeah.
But it was a lot of fun being over there at the Neshoba County Fair, Mississippi's giant house party. You know, I have to tell you, and I mentioned it on the air yesterday, it looked to me like, you know, sitting in the tents there on Founder Square. So it's I'm not actually calculating the attendance, but just eyeball anecdotally speaking, looked like it was an incredibly well-attended, successful event. It always is, of course, but, you know, when it's an off year from an election perspective, maybe the crowds are just slightly down. There's a lot of folks that not only are there people interested, as you know, in political races that are coming up when it's a year of elections, but the candidates bring their entourages as well. So that adds to the mix. But I thought it was a great fair. Representative Scott Bounds, president of the Neshoba County Fair, shout out to him. He did a fantastic job. There's a bunch of work involved, as you know, Rhino, putting something like that together. And just watching him, he's getting pulled in a million directions. I want you to know that he took care of the house band, which performed yesterday at 1 o'clock, getting us set up with VIP credentials so we could get through the gate and park near the stage, which is inside the track there, facing the stands on the other side of the track. And he took care of us there. We got all set up. Did a fantastic job. The sound folks were absolutely incredible. They did a fantastic job as well, getting everything going. We had a big time. So I got to share this real quick, just the stress of putting on a show. Our bass player, Representative Chuck Blackwell, great bassist, by the way, from Jones County. He pulls his bass out of the case, plugs it in, and the volume pot not working right, just buzzing. We're not getting anything from his bass. And we're panicking. We got about 5 minutes. And he takes the cover off, plays around with it, can't fix it. Larry Fleet, of course, performed last night at the fair. And one of their technical guys came out and messed with it as well. Just couldn't get it going. And so we just, you know, very respectfully asked, geez, is there any way maybe the bass player for Larry Fleet could make available for this hour? I'm sure he's got a vault of basses like most of those guys carry around, you know, when they're touring. And And the people said, no, there's no way he's going to do that. So let me tell you, after playing, and we're like, oh, my gosh, what are we going to do? It's 4 or 5 minutes after start time. We don't have a bass, which is kind of tough. I got to tell you, it's also tougher on the drummer because the bass drum coordinate, as you know. And Chuck and I have gotten pretty good at having practiced, and I'm sweating as well.
He's like your eyes up front. He can
right.
see things that the lead singer or the guitarist are doing subtly that you can't see because their back's to you.
That's right. And so, but we've had a good time getting together, coordinating our sound. So out comes the bassist for Larry Fleet. He comes on the stage, and he's working with Chuck a little bit, trying to get it going. He brings a bass, one of his personal basses. Beautiful instrument, by the way. And handed it to Chuck, plugged it into Chuck's amp, tuned it, make sure it was good to go. And he stayed there while he was doing it and asked, hey, are you good? Is this good with you? I mean, he couldn't have been more accommodating and nicer. Mississippi hospitality right there on the stage at the Neshoba County Fair from the very talented bassist of Larry Fleet. And I stood up from the drums. I'm right next to Chuck watching all this go on, and I stood up from my throne there and of course, just extended major gratitude. He shook my hand, and he said, oh, yeah, no problem, man. So I just want to shout that out. The stress of that, of course, got us out of sync just a little bit. Like we're all trying to figure out what to do. But, man, that was fantastic. I just had to start off with that this morning. So continue with the show. I thought it went well. I saw Representative Greg Haney from Gulfport. You know him. He's been on the program before. I saw him dancing a bit during the show, so I felt that was the litmus test. I'm also pleased to report that my daughter Alex and son Nick, they made their way up as well. It was so cool to see them in the stands. First time they've ever watched the old man play an instrument there, live in a band. That's kind of neat.
I wasn't laughing at you. I just immediately had the mental picture of like this rating system of dancing politicians. I give that 7 dancing politicians.
Oh, man. Speaker of the House Jason White was up in the stands as well, and numerous others. I don't want to leave anybody out. We're so grateful to everybody that came out to hear us. And Representative Dan Eubanks' wife, Corey, was good enough to take numerous photos, record video. She's really talented at that and has some powerful photographic equipment. And they let her inside, as they did the other members of the family. My kids decided to stay in the stands there where the sound's actually better as it projects in that direction, But she was inside the area between the stage and the track and took some great photos of the entire band and also did some video as well, recorded some video. It's up on the House Band Facebook site. Check it out, folks. Don't know when and where the next gig is, but my understanding is things are in the works. So that's pretty cool. Of course, I got to tell you, I was stressed out yesterday morning setting the drums up. They asked me to set them up to the side on ground level below the concrete stage there at the fair. And that was because Larry Fleet's crew was there setting all their stuff up. Now, of course, that's a major production to set all that equipment up. We set up, it was the cover band, so to speak, the warm-up band in front of them. And so I set them up and was working with someone that was part of the production. Individual's name's Daryl Dukes. I want to give a shout-out to him. Turns out, Rhino, he's a drummer. So my confidence level went up tremendously because they had to move my drums over to the stage while we were doing the show. And so I was going straight from the set on for the show there near the pavilion, meandering through the cabins over to the track, on the track, drums all set up on the stage. And he said, you want them just like that, right? I said, yes, set it. Because, we drummers are meticulous about the height and the angles. You know how that is and all that stuff. And you got to get the feet on the stands just right to make all that work. And I'm telling you, he set it up perfect. He relocated all that stuff perfectly. So shout out to Daryl, who told me he listens to us as much as he can as well. So appreciate it, man. Great job, great time. Just wanted to kind of recap that from yesterday. And I also thought we had a series of good interviews for the last couple of days. I mean, starting with the governor. Yesterday, the lieutenant governor. The day before, we had Attorney General Lynn Fitch. I don't want to leave anybody out. Chief Justice Mike Randolph. Justice Jennifer Branning recently assumed a position on the bench as well from Neshoba County. Who else we talked to? Sean Tyndall, Commissioner of Public Safety. DeKeither Stamps, Public Service Commissioner for the Central District. Mike Cheney, Insurance Commissioner. On Wednesday as well, Congressman Michael Guest. Alex Payton, our content director, of course, did a fantastic job of lining up guests for us to interview on Middays. Houston McDavid, our engineer. Somebody sent me a text that got my attention. Always does a great job getting everything going. But it's the first time I can remember, Rhino, that my laptop shut down because it was too hot. And I think that was that Formica on the set work surface. Felt like it was radiating the heat onto the bottom of my laptop with the way the sun was shining. We're coming right back. Today it's Caleb Sailors at 11:20. He's a multimedia journalist with SuperTalk Mississippi News. Stay with us. We're just getting started in the Element Wealth studio. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Check it out. Let's do this.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Love is but a song we sing, feels we will die. You can make the mountains ring, or make the angels cry. Though the bird is on the wing, and you may not know why.
The Youngbloods. Great tune there. From the protest song era. That's the protest song, essentially. That's an underlying message there is opposition to the Vietnam War, of course. Get together. Wow, what a time in this nation's history. I'm so glad that that era is over and that we're not engaged and embroiled with stupid wars, because that was a stupid war where 55,000 Americans with an average age of 19 lost their lives for a reason nobody really knows at this point. Now, I know you'll get a lot of historians and scholars that will spout some sort of justification for that. I ain't buying it, by the way.
Well, the ultimate irony is that the official reason was to prevent the spread of communism.
Right.
The irony.
Think about that. Now we have card-carrying American citizens running for office who were spreading communism, as Lyndon Johnson called it, under our dang noses. It's incredible. Oh, how short our memories are.
Society's memory is short. A liberal's memory is like a goldfish.
That is a good way to put it, for sure. Just incredible. You know, you think about it, though, Rhino, if every Republican candidate in America at every office in a general election now, when they're facing off against their Democrat opponents, doesn't connect their opponent to these communists that are about to get elected to 2 major American cities as mayors, they need to fire their campaign consultant. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the farther down the rabbit hole you go, or farther down the hierarchy you go, the less it will have meaning.
Yeah.
Like if you're running for local city council,
okay,
as a Republican,
yeah,
and you're running against a Democrat, might be hard to convince the people that spend their work days with or go to church with that Democrat that, yeah, they're a card-carrying communist.
Unbelievable.
But the farther up the hierarchy, it's a lot easier.
It seems like it, yeah. Well, that's what's going on in this country. It really is hard to believe that we went from literally sending teenagers into war to lose their lives to fight the spread of something now that seems to be spreading rather rapidly within the circles of far-left kook Democrats. And it's elitists running around with all the spoils of capitalism, which includes their personal bank accounts, which would not have any assets in them were it not for capitalism, that are promoting this garbage.
Well, no, in
it.
fairness, they would still be rich under communism.
Well, that's true.
Because they're the communist politicians.
Okay. So they're in the Politburo these days. And
that's why they're so brazen with it now.
I guess you're right. I never really thought about it from that perspective. But so what you're telling me is that it's the true colored form of communism that they support, where they're part of the fortunate, the regime, the elite, the Politburo, right? And everybody else, you're just on your own. You're eating cake, as the famous saying goes. Yeah, I guess that's where we are. That's kind of sad. It truly is. And I like the idea that the president is being outspoken about these nutcases. He says he's bound and determined not to allow New York to have a communist as a mayor. What do they call him now? Kami Mamdani, I think is his nickname. And I certainly applaud him for pointing that out. I just hope that people see the light and realize this would not be in your best interest. You think you're voting in your best interest, but you're not when you're electing these kooks. He, of course, not a person who's ever been deprived of anything. Zoran Mamdani comes from means and wealth and high economic status, much higher than the people that live in New York City on average, by a lot. So we'll see. I am seeing that Curtis Slava, the Republican candidate...
It's not like Stalin or Gorbachev ever missed a meal.
Good point. Yeah. Or the chubby little dictator of North Korea either, right? It doesn't look like he missed one as well. Man, oh, man. The markets today, give you an update on that, they're not doing that well. The Dow presently down 630, the NASDAQ 447, the S&P 103, the funny money's down as well. This is because there are lots of concerns about the tariffs, sweeping announcements concerning tariffs last night. And that's got investors really concerned. I think part of the concern is that all we have are frameworks at this point. We really don't have just ironclad, nailed down agreements. There's concerns about that. And then we got a rather weak jobs report. And that's got the market. So the combination of all that news on the same day is causing stocks to fall. Amazon had a great quarter, by the way. totally blew it out, beat expectations top and bottom line, but the stock is down because they said that there's some challenges ahead, some headwinds to their Amazon Web Services cloud services. That's relevant to the state of Mississippi with the investment they're making at this point in Madison County for their cloud business. But they didn't say there's a decline in demand or any kind of problem with the industry overall. What they said is that we see competitive threats. There's other really good companies. I've talked about this. Oracle is the one I think is the sleeper here, who's having incredible growth in their Oracle, their OCI business unit. It stands for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Oracle, no stranger to application software. That's how they got their start. Database software, really the inventors for the most part, from a commercial perspective, of what are called relational database structures. Underneath virtually every application you use, there's a relational database. These guys invented that for the most part, technology. And then what's not a big deal today, but it was 25 years ago, what's called client-server computing. That just really means that some of the computing takes place on your local device. The rest of it takes place on the back end. This was before cloud. It was just servers that you connected to. Could be premise-based. In other words, the customer, the company, the organization owns those servers. They're installed on their locations. All the end users have PCs, laptops, other devices. This is pre-cell phones now, pre-smartphones. And you would connect, but you only had a small piece of the processing, usually the interface itself. That's why they call it the client. The client part is the part you interface with on your computer. The screens, for example. So that stuff's not traveling across the wire. That was the original premise of the design, the basis of the design. Yeah, if we could keep some of that processing local and just rely on the back end for more intense compute functions. That's the client-server architecture. So these guys invented that. Now everything's cloud-based, where nothing virtually occurs on your local device except your browser. Everything else happens inside that, which is happening back on the back end in the cloud on the servers stored in data centers. That's a little bread right there bumping us out of this segment. That's my favorite bread song, Guitar Man. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From the Seabrook Paint.
Days with Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our shop
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. Thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. Just looking at the net income, looking at the Mag 7, many of them announced this week. We had earlier in the week, it was Meta and Microsoft. That was a couple of days ago, blockbuster reports. And then we've got Apple and Amazon today. We had Tesla not too long ago. Not a great quarter for them. But the one to keep an eye on, in my view, in terms of just upside potential and growth, is Microsoft. Shocked, honestly, I was that their net income for the last quarter, $27 billion. That's a bunch. You got Meta right up in there as well. They're having and experiencing phenomenal growth. wasn't too long ago, a couple of years ago, it was Apple leading the pack. Their net income, I can't remember which year, may have been 23. It was just about $120 billion on sales, as I recall, of just over $300 billion. And that's pulled back. I mean, don't feel sorry for Apple, okay? They're only going to make $95 billion, it looks like, this year based on the run rate. And they had a fantastic quarter that they just announced, and it's a little surprising. That was largely driven to iPhone sales and their services business. Now, Tim Cook, the CEO, said a couple of years ago, we're going to pivot somewhat, focus more on services, recurring services in particular. That business is up substantially, which is good news for the iPhone maker. But it's Microsoft, man, coming in at $27 billion of net income. And, of course, you can't ignore NVIDIA, of course, that's on about a $100 billion run rate on revenue of about $140, which is just hard to even wrap your head around, honestly, when you think about it. But that's kind of the status of the Mag 7, and they're leading the charge from an economic perspective. Meta, had an $18 billion net income quarter. That's the most I think they've ever made in a quarter, so they're at $75 billion or so run rate. But that's $18 billion on revenue of $47. I don't think people realize just how monumental that is to have that kind of net income on the revenue produced. When your net income bottom line is in this case, the 38-40% range, that's just incredible. Just contrast that to Walmart, one we've talked about that the leftists in this country love to attack. And their net income's 3%. So here you got Meta, Microsoft, Apple, NVIDIA, all double, triple, quadrupling, 10Xing in some cases.
I mean, to put a sharper point on that percentage point for Walmart, just so it kind of makes more sense. They sell roughly, I mean, it's a little less than, but roughly $700 billion in sales.
Yep, a year. Yep.
Their profit's less than 20.
That's exactly right. So you've heard me talk about these other companies. For a quarter, Microsoft made 27. They made $7 billion more in a quarter than Walmart does in a year. And the same is true for Amazon, which was around the $20 billion mark. Microsoft 27, Meta 18, Apple 24. These companies all make more than Walmart in a quarter that Walmart makes in a year. That is the growth that's powering our economy. Can Walmart grow? Sure. But that bottom line, when it's 3%, it's going to grow substantially, even if they're growing their top line revenue. And mainly how they do that is building more stores, right? Adding more products, which is somewhat risky, or just the economic performance in general is just so strong that people are spending more money. But it doesn't change that substantially. They don't have the upside of top and bottom line the way these companies do, because this is a new frontier. I think it's fair to say groceries and the stuff, the basic commodities that Walmart sells, it's kind of settled, if you will.
Well, look at it in terms of risk. It's a lot riskier to spend billions of dollars innovating the next big thing in technology when there's other people spending billions of dollars to do the same thing that could potentially beat you.
Yeah.
So it's a bigger risk for those billions you spent compared to, in a lot of places, Walmart's the only place you really got that's got that much selection.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And but you're not going to see a slanted line upward on Walmart and Kroger the way we have witnessed with NVIDIA, which not too long ago was doing $40 billion of sales a year, and now it's $120. It's triple.
It just seems like there's a outsized portion of the population that doesn't understand the risk-reward relationship.
I think you're right about that. You know who needs to understand it and doesn't? Elected officials that don't come from a business background. And I'm not talking about any particular party. I'm talking about across the board. These guys make laws and regulations and policies that affect the people that have to deal with that risk-reward dynamic that you're describing. But most of them, as I like to say, have never signed the front of a check. They've signed the back of a check. It's different. And you know the other thing? They only got to worry about their job every 4 or 6 years or 2 years, whereas when you're running a business and you're signing the front of the check, and I know the folks out there know what I'm talking about that are in business, it's every day. It's 24 hours a day you're stressed out about it.
And even if you're doing well, it's every pay period.
That's exactly right. And I got to tell you, in my business experience, when I was doing well, I was always looking around. Okay, when's the other shoe going to fall? This is too good. What's going to happen? And I think that's just the function of being a constantly nervous entrepreneur, which is the only way, honestly, you can succeed is if you're nervous about it all the time and stressed about it. It's why it's not for everybody, honestly. But I think it's kind of cool that all this is going on. Now, from a Tesla perspective, I think Elon Musk seems to have scaled back his involvement in politics. You know, there was a SpaceX
at least
launch
public-facing performances.
That's right. So we're not seeing a lot of stuff about
He's still the biggest donor to Republican PACs at the moment, I believe.
Got the money to do it, no doubt about it. I've seen some market analysts say if he's back in the saddle and he's focused, I mean, this guy literally walks the factories when they're building factories.
It'll help, but his problem is that the left are so reactionary and tribalistic that they no longer see the value in virtue signaling by buying a Tesla.
Yeah, that's true. And that did drive a lot of at least the EV sales. Which, by the way, did you see the report of how much money Ford lost because they just jumped all in? And I guarantee you, now, it's an opinion. That's what we do here. This is my opinion, and I'm willing to put my reputation, my word behind it. They made those decisions based on ideology, not good, sound business.
Yeah, you can see that in their first commercial for the electric F-150. They were promoting its ability to, as long as you got it plugged into the house, power goes out, it can power your house. That oversold the capabilities a pretty good amount. Gotta keep your lights on for a little bit.
Just a tad. Well, they announced they have torpedoed $15 billion on their EV endeavors, which they have dramatically scaled back because guess what? People aren't buying them the way they thought. They're just not the same. We're not ready for prime time. It just feels like, it looks like on the surface, these are smart people. They made this decision almost like we're going to prove a point, even though this isn't good, sound business. By gosh, we're going to make this work because we're virtuous and we care. Does it not feel like that a little bit?
It'd be kind of like if the engineers that built the Apollo program hamstringed themselves and said, you know what, we're not going to use rocket fuel. We're going to use bacon grease.
I just say that because if it had been a $1 or $2 billion experiment, maybe I could have said, okay, well, they were testing the waters from a business. 15? No, that was more than that. That's something else going on there. We're going to take a break right now. Don't forget, at 11:20, it's Caleb Sailors with the SuperTalk Mississippi News team.
The best covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk Mississippi.
The great Eric Clapton. Boy, is that a good tune or what there, man? He, of course, on the lead guitar and the lead vocals in that tune. That's a good one there. So we're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. The C Spire text line 601-879-4395. Gary from Tishomingo says, my brother was 19 when he went to Vietnam and came back with a Bronze Star for saving his platoon. Wow, thanks for sharing that with us, Gary. That's and thank your brother for his service. So many stories. And, you know, all those guys, Rhino, they're in their 70s now. So not many left in our country that were in World War II, of course. Those guys are in their 90s, some over 100. Their numbers are dwindling. And now that's sort of what's happening with the Vietnam era. I'm just a generation behind that. I missed the draft, and fortunately, my brother did in fact volunteer. He's 10 years older than me. He passed away in 1976, but he got out of high school, and of course, rather than being drafted, which often meant drafted into the infantry and being sent to the fields with bullets flying around your head, he elected to volunteer for the Air Force. And he was a smart guy, and so he got selected to test for the Strategic Air Command, SAC. Kind of the Green Beret equivalent in the Air Force. And but he was involved quite a bit in some covert operations. He was restricted to the country, I think, for 10 years after he was discharged, just because he was kind of a known entity, as a lot of those guys are. They don't take the risk no matter what. They just don't want you out of the country. I don't know if we still do those kinds of things with many of our armed forces service members that may be exposed to information that if it landed in the wrong hands, everything's so digital now, I'm not sure if that's the case. But just being exposed to certain confidential information, he had to stay in the country. There was concerns that he, would get captured by enemy. I don't know how realistic that is, but it doesn't matter. Those were the rules. And he would often be behind enemy lines taking care of stuff. He couldn't tell us what it was. He just told us, or where he was, that was going on. But such a sad period in our history, for sure. Appreciate you sharing that, Gary. It was about as smart as using a tranny to promote Country Boy beer, says CC in Senatobia. Yeah, that wasn't very smart. I think he's referring to Ford's more than just dipping their toe in EVs. I wouldn't call a $15 billion loss, and that's not the total amount they invested. That's just the amount they lost. I would agree. That was not a wise business decision on their part. Mike from Brandon says, I did exactly the same thing, showing the Air Force have to be drafted, went to Turkey to spy on Russia. Couldn't say anything for like 10 to 12 years, something like that. Yeah, there you go. So I think that's totally true, and it's completely understandable. Profit-taking Friday on the C Spire text line. I think there's more than profit-taking going on here. There are concerns about the tariffs. We'll get to those in the program as well. I mean, there's a series of tariffs because August 1 was a deadline for many. The biggest one that's got the investment community all rattled is the 35% tariff on Canada. Canada also, by the way, has significantly reduced its imports of American petroleum products. That's in the news as well, and that's causing some concerns. And one of the things that you can take some indication from are the decrease in bond yields. The 10-year bond, which, of course, is connected to most of consumer borrowing, such as credit cards and automobile loans, mortgages, of course, the big one. Man, I think it's down to 4.25% today. The yield way down. And I'm a little surprised at that, given the market reaction. Usually you see opposite. So that's a little worrisome. It's more than a little worrisome when you got bond yields down like that. And that essentially means that people are demanding more, and when those things are rolling over, or there are not as many buyers for those securities, or too many buyers, for those securities, and so because that drives the price down, which drives the yield up, and this is exactly what's happening is the opposite of that. So not a good deal. We're coming right back after Fox News, Super Talk News. Of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays. We are live in the Element Wealth studio at the SuperTalk headquarters after having been at the Neshoba County Fair on this
Friday, y'all.
And a welcome sight it is, a Friday. I always enjoy going over to the fair, but it can be a little exhausting with the heat. And then I'd like to run around and visit with folks as well. So many good people. And as I said on the show, man, everybody comes by, the SuperTalk tent, says, hey, my cabin's so-and-so, come by and relax, refresh, have something to eat, drink. Everybody's just so hospitable. And it's truly does, I think, reflect on the good people of Mississippi and how welcoming they are to anyone. Makes you proud, honestly, to be a Mississippian. No kidding. So, and this isn't anything you could explain to anyone anywhere else in the world, is it? How do you explain that? They look at you like the RCA Victor dog. But we know what it is, and we had a good time for sure. And appreciate, again, Alex Payton for our lineup. That was fantastic. We talked to the 3 main lawmakers in the state, the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the speaker of the House, and learn from them their priorities, their agenda. That within 2 days, we got to talk to all of them. And that's right after they come off the stage at the pavilion there, delivering their remarks. I got to tell you, Rhino, I don't know if you thought the same, but we don't talk to the governor a whole lot, but when we do, we are always appreciative of him joining us. I thought yesterday's discussion was the best that we've had with him. Man, he was upbeat. He was energetic. He was positive. Not that he always isn't like that, but he's got so much to tout, and he did so. And that's what the governor should be doing. They are the chief salesperson, the chief ambassador, the chief spokesperson for the state. And he did a great job of that. And we do have a lot to be grateful for, and we do have a lot of good stuff going on, man, here in the great state of Mississippi. Let's continue that momentum, as the governor likes to say. It's Mississippi's time. I completely agree. On the C Spire text line, get to some of those texts. Really appreciate folks for weighing in. Here's one. Saw you guys play yesterday at 1. Very good set. You guys are pretty good. Appreciate that. Well, like I said, first time we got together, I think we kind of all left thinking, we got some work to do at a minimum. But you expect that. And when we were done, we kind of had a little postmortem, and I felt bad because I boo-booed a couple of times. And everybody else had their little mishaps as well. Most people don't know, but when you're playing the music. I mean, I know if I miss a lick here and there, a count, a beat, or a timing. Most people don't, and that's fine, but you want to get it right, of course, and we all do. Well, Representative Lance Varner, he told me after the show, one of the strings on his guitar busted in the first song. And Representative Steve Lott stepped on his cord to his lead guitar twice and unplugged it. But he recovered in a hurry. And I'm thinking, I need that for my time. And, and I try to keep it going. I missed
Now you see why the big bands have roadies.
I do. I totally do.
And that Racco guitars.
And you've seen them many times have to run out, and make some exchanges. Or in the old days, mics, right, would fail. That was a big thing. Here's a new mic. They had it all set up and ready to go. But, look, we all had, I think the first song, Representative Eubanks, not on our part, but the sound needed some adjustment. But it's not like we're a big band and we got all this time to go do a bunch of sound checks, which is what they do like all day, right?
Before
they
perform. The engineers that set it up, they'll set up, initial setup, do a test, tweak some things, do a test, tweak some more things, do another test, probably do another tweak, and then another test, and then the talent comes in, and they spend the next hour or two tweaking.
But overall, though, man, I think we all agreed, 6 practices, it sounded pretty good. And I was pleased. So that's the way I look at it. And it just gets better from here. We all have upside in us, but we had fun. And when you're looking around, I especially from the drummer's perspective, I can kind of look at the other guys, and they'll turn around here and there, and I'm kind of smiling, thinking, yeah, this is actually pretty good. And I look in the stands, and people are kind of moving back and forth and singing along and clapping. That's when you know. But like we said, when Representative Haney was dancing, that's it, man. We hit, what'd you call it, the politician score?
Oh, yeah. The dancing politician rating scale.
That one's sticking, I promise. I love that. That is awesome. But I'm not sure who this is on the C Spire text line, but we do appreciate you coming, man. I'm appreciative to everybody that did. It was hot, and we saw people with the fans, the little hand fans, during the show. But it's the fair. But a little music maybe cooled you off a bit. Jason in Starkville says, did Thomas ever show up? I don't think he was able to get there.
No, he actually apologized a little earlier. He says, sorry about yesterday, planned to come, but it was apparently cool enough at 3:30 in the morning for meth heads to wreak havoc, and he didn't get done till 10.
Oh, okay. I understand. Well, I think that there'll be future gigs for sure, and we look forward to those. The Fed should have waited until this labor report to come out before they met. Why would 2 days hurt, says Don. And so I think what Don's talking about there is we didn't get a really good labor report this morning.
Especially the revisions.
Yeah, and which is why
Yeesh.
that I don't have a whole lot of confidence in so much data when it is initially released. Even the GDP, which everybody's celebrating at 3%, what are the odds that that's going to be revised downward after all the data comes in and they do some more calculations?
Yeah, the May number was revised down from 144,000 to 19,000 jobs added, and the June numbers were revised down from 147,000 to 14,000 added.
I think we need to find...
Seems the methodology's busted because every month for like the last several years, it seems, have had to be revised down by a significant margin.
I think, Rhino, we need to locate the sound clip of Bob Uecker with just a tad outside, which is what he said on the mic, right, in Major League when the pitcher threw it about 8 feet to the right of the catcher, as I recall. Just a bit outside. A bit outside, excuse me. That's what we can say about these statistics, huh? We're going to do that from now. Every time we get a revision. What was the... Tell me the numbers again. What was the revision from May?
From May, the number was revised down from the reported 144,000 jobs added, revised down to 19,000 jobs added. And the June number was reported at 147,000 jobs added, and it was revised down to only 14,000 jobs added.
Cue Uecker now, please.
Got to get him to come back up.
Oh, man. What did
and is trying to play an ad.
What did they miss? What did they miss? It like 70% or something insane like that. I just
a bit outside.
That's great. Well, I've said this before on the show. I have zero confidence in any of this information related to jobs. The labor force participation rate is nothing but a joke. I'm still looking for one person, by the way, across the state of Mississippi. I hadn't brought this up in a while. I do whenever I speak. I have a slide where I show the flow chart, also known as a decision tree, is what they are referred to, of how the BLS goes about calculating, collecting data, and then calculating the labor force participation rate. And I've showed it. And they say they call people. And I'm looking for one person that's ever been called. I've yet to find one human being that's ever been called by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And when you see these kinds of revisions, it kind of makes the point, does it not? Like, well, I'm not so sure that's accurate data. But back to Don here. Yeah, so the Fed says, we're keeping rates the same. That was a couple of days ago, 3 days ago. And he said, well, maybe if they'd seen the job numbers, they perhaps would have reduced rates. Because they have, what you've heard it before, what's called a dual mandate. And it's a fancy word for keeping inflation at bay. It's called price stability. And then the other one is optimum employment. That's their two mandates. And they don't have many tools for that. One of those is the benchmark interest rate. Yeah, generally speaking, if jobs aren't being created and we're seeing layoffs and unemployment claims, they will reduce interest rates, thinking that will stimulate investment in hiring. So that's how that works. Coming right back with Caleb Sailors, Multimedia Journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just as I thought it was going all right, I found out I'm wrong when I thought it was right. It's always the same, it's just a shame, that's all. I could say day and you'd say night. Tell me it's black when I know that it's white. Always the same, it's just a shame, and that's all. I could leave, but I won't go. Though my heart might tell me.
That's Phil Collins in Genesis right there. Rhino's playing. Speaking about a very talented musician, a drummer, and a vocalist. The rarest of all talents to me in the musical world. Maybe I'm biased because I happen to be a drummer. I haven't mastered that art yet the way Phil Collins and Don Henley and some others have. But right now it's Caleb Sailors, Multimedia Journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News.
Yeah, Gerard, I've had the privilege of seeing Don Henley live in concert, and I will tell you, though, that was a humbling experience for me, because I'm like, yeah, you know what, I'll probably never be that talented in my entire life. Good, man. He's got more talent in his left pinky than I probably have altogether.
They made a lot of great music that has provided many billions of hours of enjoyment to a lot of people across the planet. And that's the way you have to look at it, honestly. So,
I mean, I saw the Eagles, and they're playing hit after hit after hit after hit. And I'm like, I grew up on this. My dad grew up on this. My grandfather listened to this. I mean, this passed down generations, and people are still listening to it.
Well, when I was in high school, you know, if you wanted to get the chicks, you had to play the Eagles.
Yeah. A little different for me in high school. I was playing the Eagles, but wasn't getting the chicks. So,
some of the guys would say that's chick music. Not anymore, though. But all right, give us an update. What the heck's going on? I know you were over at the fair. What'd you see that caught your attention as newsworthy?
Gerard, a lot of things happened at the Neshoba County Fair this year, and you know it was weird with it not being an election year. We still have the political speeches as always, so a lot of the candidates went up there and just touted their records and what they've done for Mississippi. one of the speeches that really stood out to me, it was the last one, was Governor Tate Reeves, and he took, I won't say us media, like local media, but he took a lot of the national media, a lot of the quote-unquote fake news to task, and brought out the receipts. He cited New York Times articles, CNN op-eds, and MSNBC or CNBC reports that painted Mississippi in a negative light regarding our education, regarding our economy. And the governor was like, man, boy, were they wrong. And touted his successes as Mississippi's governor, and the Mississippi Miracle in education, which happened when he was lieutenant governor, but still under his leadership, and our economy securing nearly $36 billion in new private investments, Amazon Web Services, our new partnership with NVIDIA, talking about how we're making strides in AI. The governor wanted to just challenge these narratives that he called false narratives, that Mississippi is this backwards thinking place that's clinging to old traditions and will never move forward. And he's saying that's just not the case. You may not like our values. You may not like that we're a majority Christian state. You may not like that we have conservative values. You may not like that we do things a little bit differently in Mississippi than maybe people in other states do. But we're going to be unapologetically Mississippian, and our strength in our people is that we are unapologetically Mississippian. And while naysayers may have said, that would yield negative results and ramifications for Mississippi, the governor is saying that's just not the case.
Yeah, I think his central message was that Mississippi values and his conservative philosophy to governing across the board, education, economic issues and matters, etc., those can coexist and drive success.
Right.
And I think that sort of perplexes the left, that how is Mississippi able to accomplish these things and make such substantial gains?
And backwards thinking. They're set back thousands of years. And then when executives from Amazon come to Mississippi, and Gerard, you've gotten to meet all of these people. I've gotten to speak to these people. What is the first thing they say? They say, wow, you guys are the nicest people we've ever met.
Yeah, they're blown away.
You guys are the friendliest people. Wow. We've heard all these things about Mississippi, about how you guys are all just terrible, horrible, no good, very bad people. And then we get here and you're all nice to us. You're saying yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. You have manners. It's like maybe the world could take. Look, I'm biased, Gerard. I'm born and raised in Mississippi. I'm proud to be a Mississippian. I'm very grateful for my upbringing, and it does bring me a lot of pleasure to see people coming to Mississippi and being pleasantly surprised by the hospitality they're met with here. But one thing that the governor highlighted too that I wasn't aware of was he talked about how some of these people who had criticized, blasted Mississippi had admitted their errors recently, and one of them was Rahm Emanuel, former mayor of Chicago, former White House chief of staff under Barack Obama. I didn't see this clip until yesterday after the governor had mentioned it. And Rahm Emanuel has touted the Mississippi Miracle, our strides in education, literacy rates skyrocketing, high school graduation rates skyrocketing, as what should be the national standard. Gerard, have you seen that clip of him talking about it?
I haven't. I heard the governor talking about it, though.
So, for everybody in our listening audience, y'all go to my Twitter as soon as you can, Caleb Sailors ST. I posted the video this morning, and for about 2 minutes, Rahm Emanuel just raves about what has been done in Mississippi. And this is, again, a very, very staunchly Democratic mayor of Chicago, former mayor of Chicago, Obama White House chief of staff, whose politics could not differ more greatly from our governor and many of our elected officials' politics. And he's even saying, what Mississippi did and the way it happened in Mississippi, how they went back to the basics, that needs to be done nationwide. It was pretty cool to see. And then the governor took note and said, hey, you guys have been blasting Mississippi, but here are our results. And I thought that was probably one of the more notable events from the Neshoba County Fair. But then, you had other I wouldn't say promises, but other proposals. Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann proposing more than $300 million in tax rebates. He also called for another teacher pay raise. And then House Speaker Jason White, I think he is the staunchest advocate for school choice in Mississippi. I mean, if you could find someone who's a bigger school choice proponent than him, then you tell me. But he explicitly called for school choice, and he also, petitioned. I know he did it on this show, and he continues to do it. Petition for Mississippi to opt in to the $1,700 tax credit that's available through the One Big Beautiful bill. And Gerard, one thing that kind of caught me off guard I wasn't expecting was Lieutenant Governor vouched for it too. He said that was one of his top jobs, top priorities heading into the legislative session.
I was a little surprised at that too.
Yeah, he wanted to make sure some statutory requirements are met, but he wants to allow Mississippians to, for those who don't understand this proposal, it allows taxpayers to donate up to $1,700 in cash or in stock to a scholarship granting organization, to someone who's giving money to people up to 300% of the area median income, so they can use it on private school education, even public schools, supplies, homeschooling, etc. And you get a tax credit for that. So you get $1,700 back from the IRS from that for doing that. And, you know, the House Speaker, when he first talked about it, was hesitant to say whether or not the Senate would support it. He knew his chamber would support it, knew the governor would support it. But then we got confirmation from the lieutenant governor that, hey, we're going to push the Senate to do this too. So I wouldn't be shocked if, you know, we had this strong scramble to get House Bill 1 passed by the House early this past session. I wouldn't be shocked if both chambers come together to try to get this tax credit passed early in the upcoming session.
That did appear to be the case to me as well. That was good to hear.
Well, does it cost Mississippi money?
Yeah, this is all a federal tax credit.
Right.
It comes out of the federal kitty, so no cost to the state of Mississippi. And it's kind of a no-brainer to me, but the concern is that's already being expressed by those who also oppose any form of school choice is that this could ultimately take students away from public schools. They would have a means to attend an alternative school, private school, charter school, et cetera. So,
you know, I grew up. I went through the public school system in Mississippi. Gerard, you know, I did have to move from one public school to another, not because of school choice or anything, but because my family moved. I hated it. Now I acclimated to my new school and I enjoyed my friends and families. Most people are not looking to move their kids to another school. They want their local public school to be perfectly viable for their pupils. You know that, Gerard. Mm-hmm. Most people want to stay within their zip code.
They do.
But if that school is not meeting that student's needs, then these lawmakers like Jason White, House Speaker, and Governor Tate Reeves, who spoke on school choice extensively yesterday too, are saying, hey, let's consider giving these parents another option. I'm not arguing for or against school choice here, but this is what the call is for. It's like, hey, you know, this student may have special needs or may have a learning disorder, may have this or that, and this other school will be better suited for him.
Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised, as I think you were, that it's you know, where Speaker of the House Jason White certainly fully supports that. He said that when he was on the show a couple of weeks ago, but I was shocked when the lieutenant governor said, he would support that. So,
and it would be a priority for him.
Yeah, a priority.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where that came from. I didn't expect it. Appreciate you coming in as always, Caleb. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you, Gerard. I appreciate it.
You bet. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio.
From the Seabrook.
Is everybody ready? I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Well studio. Thanks so much for joining us. The C Spire text line 601-879-4395. Again, are you thinking about or planning for retirement? Do you have a plan? Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006. to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income growth and guarantees. In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar is on today. You'll hear an interview with comedian Jerry Wayne Longmire. And then next Tuesday, we're going to be at Ole Miss. We're going to bring awareness to child advocacy studies. That's from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. CAST, C-A-S-T, is a national curriculum that is being implemented in higher education institutions across Mississippi, focusing on interdisciplinary collaboration to provide students with a foundation for identifying and responding to child abuse. That's next Tuesday from Ole Miss. Tune in to learn more about that. Sports Talk, man, they got a busy schedule. Of course, it's pre-football period of the year. They'll be on the road on August the 6th, the 13th, and the 20th. The Not Fall Camp Tour in Oxford, Starkville, and Hattiesburg. They'll be visiting with coaches, players, and getting you ready for the start of the season. Tell me it's not time for that already again, huh?
Oh, yeah, there was an NFL preseason game last night.
I had no idea.
Oh, yeah, they rolled out the new technology.
Which is what?
There are no longer chain gangs. They're measuring whether or not you got a first down digitally.
Oh, so we have eliminated some jobs. No more chain gang jobs, right? Man, how about that? So that means the chief umpire, the chief referee, head official, I guess, doesn't have to signal to move the chains up like they do in a game. You know, they don't move in case there's some controversy, right, on the play. And when the head official signals to them, I believe it's the head official. I can admit that I'm not completely familiar with all the various roles and responsibilities of all the officials on a football field. But that kind of changes things a little bit. I wonder if that speeds it up, the game up a little bit.
Probably not. At the NFL level, no.
Well, there's so many replay reviews, right, it seems like these days.
Well, I mean, like from the chain gang perspective, those guys are constantly in motion at the NFL level.
I guess that's right. And you see them on the sidelines running. Literally.
Oh, yeah.
So they're not just walking to set the chains up to start a play. They're running around. But the instant replay stuff, right, that's seems like...
It's coming to baseball, too, whether the umpires like it or not.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And there's been lots of... aren't they testing some technology in some leagues?
I think they did during spring ball because that was a big controversy for the start of the Major League Baseball season where if you had players, because the signal to call for review of a ball or strike was to tap the top of your helmet.
Yeah.
And you had players grabbing the top of their helmet to adjust their helmet, and some thin-skinned umpires took that as them asking for a replay, which is arguing balls and strikes, which means you're out of here.
Okay.
So there were ejections because batters were adjusting their helmet.
Gotcha. Interesting. Well, so this, you sit in these college games, though, as I do every year, and it just seems like there's just constant. The previous play is under further review, and you just sit and wait. I don't know. It seems like it slowed the game. Now, you want to get the call, right? I get it. But it's sets of eyes, right, looking at video from various angles before they come back with a ruling.
I forget if it's Australian rules football or rugby, but they've got it figured out. I don't know why everybody doesn't just adopt this as the standard, where if a play goes to review, over the PA and over the broadcast, you hear the conversation between the referee/umpire on the field and the guy in the booth looking at, and you get to see what they're looking at, see the video they're watching, the replay, and you hear their discussion live. That way you're not just sitting there going, all right, what are they going to say? And the commentators are going, well, I think it's this, or I think it could be this. No, you actually hear the people making the decision have the discussion.
And some of them are in the stadium, right, in the press box, and some of them are remote, is the way I think it typically works. So Usually it's on the C Spire text line. It is the linesman responsible for getting the chains moved and set in place. Well, that would make sense because they're the person who determines where the ball should be spotted, ultimately has power and control over that. I just wasn't sure if before they move chains because they've achieved a first down, if somehow the head official has to be involved, maybe from the linesman to the head official. Maybe not. Maybe it just takes a linesman. So, but appreciate that. And Louis from the 662 says, well, there still has to be a down marker to show where to respot the ball after an incomplete pass. Yeah, and I would think you would want that for purposes of the players because they're obviously keying in on that little orange spot arrow on the ground, if you will, the marker that shows, yeah, this is where you got to go. They look at that. You can't always look up and see the chains, but they can. That's very visible on the ground there. They're aware and cognizant of that. So I don't know what the plan is for that, but I'm sure they'll come up with something. But having just a person run around and move that marker is a little different than having the full chain gang, though, right?
Right.
Makes sense. Okay. Let's see here. Sharon and Brandon says, Phil Collins, one of the most talented of our lifetime. That's absolutely no doubt. I know his health is in decline. Sad to see for sure. But, man, he made a lot of music both as part of groups, bands, such as, what'd you play a minute ago, Mike and the Mechanics, I think?
That's all by Genesis.
Genesis, okay. Was he in Mike and the Mechanics, or was it somebody in Genesis that formed? I think there's a connection there. I don't know why I think that, to Phil Collins and Genesis and so forth. Then he had an incredibly successful solo career as well. But you're right, Sharon, no doubt.
Yeah, it was a side project by Mike Rutherford.
Okay. The Mike of Mike and the Mechanics, I assume, right? Yeah. Interesting. Right up there with John Bottom's beat in the When the Levee Breaks, which was written by a Mississippi blues player. Also, that's on the C Spire text line. In the Air helped launch the series Miami Vice in the early 80s. That would be a Phil Collins tune. Wouldn't you agree? I would. I think it also was responsible for boosting Glenn Fry's solo career, right? Smuggler's Blues, wasn't that one that came out? And then was You Belong to the City a great Glenn Fry solo tune? Was that featured somewhere along the line in Miami Vice? I can't remember. It was the same time period, though, as I recall. Great video, too. You Belong to the City. Good one.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia, You Belong to the City was written specifically for Miami Vice.
Okay, well, that was a pretty good guess on my part. I just kind of always associate him and his music with Miami Vice, with their pastel-colored clothing. And what was the vehicle? The expensive vehicle was a Ferrari that he drove there?
I don't remember the technicalities on that because I know it changed from like the first or second season to later seasons.
Okay. Crockett and Tubbs. It was a good program. I think the opening theme was pretty neat. The video and the music played there.
Yeah, during the first 2 seasons and 2 episodes from the 3rd season, Sonny Crockett drove a black 1972 Ferrari Daytona Spider.
Okay, that's right. But then I think he converted to a white one, as I recall.
Or at least that was the replica they were using. In actuality, it was, I believe, where is it in here? It was like 2 Corvettes that they'd done up to look like Ferraris.
Okay. That's right. I saw something about that. That was kind of controversial, especially.
Yeah, the reason they stopped is because Ferrari sued them.
Ah, that's right.
And then offered actual Ferrari Testarossas.
Okay. I've seen a couple of those run around town. There you go. The heat is on. That may have been featured in the series as well, huh? Another great Glenn Fry of the Eagles, of course. Can you imagine all those people with that kind of vocal talent all on the stage at the same time? Because they all had incredible vocal talent. The Eagles did. Glenn Fry being one of them, of course. Don Henley, Randy Meisner, Joe as well. So
there isn't actually an update from Phil Collins' people that the reports that he's in hospice care are untrue, but that he is still very sick.
Okay. Sorry to hear that. I mean, I've seen some still photos.
There were reports
been
in
a
recent
year.
weeks that he was entering hospice.
Okay. Well, we're stepping aside for a break. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio, just having a little wind-down fun today.
Polyupa, Mississippi. Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
The hurt doesn't show, but the pain still grows. Some stranger to you and me.
The great Phil Collins. What an iconic tune that is, man. And that's played a lot, in different situations. It's just, I don't know, kind of has that tone, that sort of haunting tone to it, gets you going, especially when it's nighttime like that. So appreciate that, Rhino. On the C-Spire text line, did have a question from Ben earlier. He caught the show yesterday. Said you had a few really jam-packed days, so I understand why you didn't get to the reassessment question. But is this going to be statewide thing or county-by-county basis? And what Ben is referring to is a directive from the Department of Revenue that county tax assessors reassess the value of properties in their respective counties. And that those valuations, of course, those assessments are used to levy ad valorem taxes, property taxes. Representative Dan Eubanks, one of my bandmates, of course, he put out a social media post where he talked about this. He sent an email to his supporters. This was last week, I think. Said, look, there's a storm brewing. I'm quoting here from Representative Eubanks. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but almost everyone in the state is about to see their property taxes take a huge leap up. He said that there's an administrative directive, just like we shared with you, from the Mississippi Department of Revenue to county tax assessors. And let's see, what it says is that the assessors need to reassess the value of homes in their counties based on, quote, the true value. This is of the property, and this is defined in Mississippi Code as, quote, market value, cash value, actual cash value, proper value, and value for the purposes of appraisal for ad valorem taxation. Now, I don't know, that seems a little dicey to me when you start talking about market value. I get it if you have an appraisal. But how do you know what something's worth until there are offers to purchase it, or as part of a sales process, or it could just be uninduced? You just get a random unsolicited offer. That's the way you determine the market value. I don't know how you get to the cash value. So it's subjective, I think, is the point I'm making. I don't know that there's any concrete, hard, fast, reliable methodology, but you got to do something. I get that as well. So the DeSoto County tax assessor, Jeff Fitch, DeSoto County, because Representative Eubanks, the one who shared this and emailed it to his constituents, is in DeSoto County. He represents DeSoto County. presented the new assessments to their Board of Supervisors. Of course, those are the people that work with the tax assessor, tax collector. That's part of the county organizational structure. And, of course, they levy and then collect the taxes that are used to fund county operations, school districts, and a little bit, of course, to the cities in some cases. Mississippi Department of Revenue has mandated that we change our pricing manuals as well as change our index to get closer to fair market value. This is what Supervisor Jeff Fitch, Tax Assessor Jeff Fitch told the supervisors. We're running 56% of market value before. They want us at least 85% of market value. So we had to make those changes for the 2025 tax year. That is a statement quoted from Tax Assessor for DeSoto County, Jeff Fitch. Department of Revenue, however, said that the department has not issued a new mandate or directive instructing county tax assessors to raise property valuations to 85% or 100% of market value as have been claimed. This is from a DOR spokesperson last week. So I'm not really sure what is the bottom line here, honestly, but it does appear that there are some reassessments underway, and yes, that could likely spell an increase in property taxes. Not sure if every county's doing that or not. Be aware, folks, of what's going on in your county. Coming right back after Fox News and SuperTalk News with the afternoon portion of Middays.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are live in the Element Wealth studio on this
Friday, y'all.
So the estimate, by the way, for jobs was 110,000. We produced 73,000, falling well below the estimates. So that's got the markets nervous, and that has really amped up the president's criticism of Jerome Powell. Typically, when you see some weakness in the job market, that is a harbinger of a weak economy, a sluggish economy, certainly for the future. And that's when the Fed would act in lowering interest rates in an effort to stimulate the economy, because that would lower borrowing costs. And it generally means that businesses would go acquire more machinery and equipment, invest capital, and when they're doing that, because the financing costs are lower. It's like buying a house. You know, when the interest rates are lower and that works within your budget, you're more likely to buy a house than when they're higher. It's the same thing. And when businesses look at buying equipment, any sort of assets like that, fixed assets, when they're going to borrow money to do so. And by the way, even companies that have a bunch of cash on their balance sheet, this may shock a lot of people, they borrow money. They don't want to use their cash at that moment in time to buy assets they're going to use long term. So they'll borrow money so that the payments, essentially, the cash flow associated with the financing of those assets is consistent with the value over time, maps to it, aligns with it. It's not uncommon. And you'll look at balance sheets of major companies, and you look at the asset side of the balance sheet and see a bunch of cash on it, and you look at the liability side and you'll see debt. You'll wonder, why do they do that? And that's why it's cheaper for them to borrow money on that basis and use their cash for other purposes. That's just part of the financial management and optimization of an organization's assets. This is common practice in business and industry. So, bottom line is that with the job market, or the jobs report, I should say, coming in below expectations, that is giving the president more ammunition to really implore the Fed to lower rates. The Fed, again, has two mandates. Literally, that's what they're called, mandates. Price stability, it's just a fancy way of saying, hey, keep inflation in check. And then maximum employment. And that, it's not zero unemployment, because I don't think that's ever happened. That's just impractical. When you just think about just normal economic growth, attrition, all the other factors that enter into folks being unemployed, quit one job, in between jobs, just got out of school, looking for a job, a million different things. You've been ill, disabled, now you're no longer so, and you're able to work, and there's a time period in there where you're looking for a job. So that's why the goal is maximum employment, not a certain level of unemployment. In general, their target there is about 4%. And we've been at what, 4.5, 4.6, pretty close to that. But it's in line, it's in range. What they don't like is the inflation data that's come in. They target 2% there, and we're still at the 2.6, 2.7 on an annualized basis. And on that basis, the Fed, the Open Market Committee, the Fed governors, presidents, along with the Fed chairman this past week said, yep, we still got to get inflation lower before we reduce rates. The problem is, and I think the president's right here, this guy Powell does appear to be an ideologue and politically motivated, and he's so grossly mishandled monetary policy during the Biden administration. It makes it hard for him to justify his lack of action now when he took action at a time when the inflation rate was higher. Made no sense. And when we were all observing it saying, guys, this is pretty sticky, it's not going away, he continued to pound the drum of transitory, along with maybe the worst Treasury Secretary in the nation's history, Janet Yellen. It's transitory. And, of course, the White House press secretary was
How bad do you have to be at that job for people to actually know your name?
That's true. You're right about that. Because the best ones, nobody knows. Who's the Treasury Secretary? It should be a situation where, who cares?
Isn't that the random signature that's also on your money?
That's right. That's when they're in office, when there's money being minted, printed, it is their signature. There was, it reminded me, my father used to collect dollar bills. Look this up for me, Rhino, where I can actually remember this, signed by a Treasury Secretary who was in office on a temporary basis, a short-term basis, and he happened to be black. His name was Joseph W. Barr. And I don't know what the time period was, but probably the 50s, 60s. But my father was
68 to 69.
Okay. So my father was
to be precise, December 21st, 68 to January 20th, 69.
Oh, so a very short period of time, a couple of months. So my father was a coin collector. I mean, not at the prolific level that these guys that have like vans to carry around, or they got vaults and stuff. But he kind of dabbled in that a bit. And that's when he learned about these bar dollars, and they were in circulation. And then the collectors felt like, you know what, this is going to be a collector's item because he was in office for a short period of time. I think he was the first, maybe the only black Treasury Secretary. Certainly in 1968, that was the case. I don't know about since then. And so they were scarfing them up. The collectors were. And back then, we didn't have credit cards and stuff. You used cash for everything. And I know my father, anytime he would pay for something, he'd always ask for most of the change to be in dollar bills because he was trying to score some Joseph W. Barr dollars. And, man, he'd sit there and look through them to see if it had Barr's signature on them. But a little trivia here on a Friday for you. You're reading some more about it. What are you seeing there?
I'm just looking at, like, the value of the dollars.
Yeah, what are they today?
You got some people on eBay that are really proud of theirs, but on average, just a hair north of face value in circulated condition. If you've got an uncirculated one, it's $5-10.
Okay.
But here's somebody on eBay with a star note. They're trying to sell for $155.
Oh, wow. You know something else my father had
bids
in his collection that he happened to have the wisdom to put it in his pocket, save, and not spend is when he was in World War II and was in Hawaii for a brief period of time. There was such a thing called
Hawaii money.
Yeah. And he had that. So because
it was out of fear that if the Japanese did make progress in the Pacific and were able to take over Hawaii, that they would have access to American money that they could then use to manipulate American markets.
Oh, okay. I got you. But it had a different look to it. The stamp and the graphics and the art on the dollar itself, as I recall. But my father had a few of those. Earlier in the show, I felt like we were hurrying to end the first hour when I was talking about the bond yields, and I thought through that, said, I'm not sure I was clear on that. What's going on? So we got bond yields falling, the 10-year in particular. We shared that with you earlier, which is good news if you're looking to borrow some money because the mortgages and automobile loans, major asset loans, credit card rates are all tied to the 10-year Treasury. Treasuries are issued in bills, notes, and bonds. And bills, notes, bonds just signifies the maturity, the term of those various instruments. Bonds are generally going to be in the, I think, 10 years and up, 10 to 30 years. You got notes that are in the middle there. So like the 10 years is, I think, a Treasury note, if I'm not mistaken. Then you got the shorter term maturities, and those are bills. But so the yield is down on the 10-year, which should cause interest rates for mortgages to fall. The yields fall in the opposite direction, or they move in the opposite direction of the price of a bond. So if it's, say, a $1,000 bond, and the demand is strong, which is what's happening right now, the Treasury can sell those for more money because demand is strong. And that's because investors are taking their money out of the stock market, buying these low-risk, totally safe U.S. Treasury securities. They're buying these bonds. The Treasury says, wow, you guys are buying more. We're going to raise the price. That lowers the yield. In other words, the total amount of money you can make on the life of that bond. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
We interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge. You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Well, while we're talking about talented musician, how about Mississippi's own there? We got more than our share, don't we? We're blessed in that regard. So Rhino was doing some history research for me on Joseph W. Barr. I got it wrong. Now, I'm pretty young when my dad's telling me about this stuff, and I didn't really have a whole lot of interest in it. It turns out he was not a black person, but he did serve for a very short period of time, 2 months, in signed currency. So Rhino was kind enough to do some research that I know you're shocked. We didn't have the internet back then. But nonetheless, the fact that there are just so few of them, right, that were minted, that's the main thing. Anything that's rare like that, generally has more value than the face value of it. In this case, the dollar bill, I think, and which are traditionally signed by the Secretary of the Treasury. But you also pointed out there was, in fact, a black treasurer during the Carter administration. That's different than the Secretary of Treasury, different position. Now, did this person also sign some currency as part of that?
Yes. A.Z. Taylor Morton was the Treasurer of the United States under Carter from September 12th, 1977 to January 20th of 81, and she remains the only African-American to have ever held that office, and her signature was printed on currency, and those bills are much more valuable.
Okay.
Like, for example, $1 bill in relatively good condition with her signature on it is going for $100.
Okay. That's a little more than the... And my dad literally used to call them Barr dollars because of the signature of Joseph Barr.
Yeah, because on every dollar you've got the signature of the Treasurer of the United States and the Secretary of the Treasury.
All right, so two signatures. Okay.
One on the left, one on the right, yeah.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Well, that's not unlike common practice in business to get two signatures on financial type documents like that. Derek in Greenwood said they cut rates at 2.7% last year. Yeah, that's right, Derek, which is why that Powell doesn't have a leg to stand on. You know, he would have a little bit more defensible position had he not done that with inflation at the same rate just before the election, magically just before the election, right? And so he's been maligned for that by the president and others as well, and that's the big problem. I'm not so sure that holding rates steady is the wrong decision. It's just inconsistent, and it does appear to be politically motivated. And I think the president senses that, and that's why he's been pretty upset. But looking at the 10-year Treasury again today, just to recap on that, down at 4.25%. It was, 4.5% a couple of weeks ago. Oil still in that above $65 a barrel. It really hasn't changed significantly in months. $67 today is where it stands. The Dow, not happy about the labor report today, and of course the tariffs are rattling investors as well. It's presently down 628 points. The NASDAQ down 450. Here's what I think. If we do get an adjustment downward of the benchmark interest rates by the Fed, the market will rise substantially. I just think that would be kind of an indicator that the Federal Reserve would embark upon a series of interest rate cuts, more than just an initial one, and that's just good news for markets. It just means that business activity increases because, like we said earlier, businesses can afford, or they're more willing at least, to invest in capital equipment when they're financing it because of finance costs. The debt service is much lower. On the C Spire text line, recently received a mailer from the Hinds County tax assessor regarding my assessment for my home in Fondren. And Andy says, just another way to raise taxes is ridiculous. How do they actually assess other than riding by and casually looking at it? Going to have an appraisal, property taxes, or BS? Well, Andy, I would say this. I don't really think that the supervisors at the county level are big fans, not too keen on raising taxes, because that is usually problematic come re-election time. And most of them, I think, would seek re-election. They stay there a while, it appears. But so I don't know that that's the case. They do have some methodologies involved in assessing property. And that, by the way, Rhino, is a great candidate, a great prospect for the application of artificial intelligence, because it's another situation where you're gathering all kinds of data about a specific property a bunch of specific properties, and AI could do that and apply LLM algorithms very rapidly to come up with an assessment of the value of a property. But I hear you, Andy. It's not perfect. I mean, appraisals aren't perfect. Until somebody makes an offer to buy. I mean, that's what dictates what the value of any asset is what a seller can sell it to what a buyer will pay for it. When they both agree, that's kind of what the market value is the way that ought to work. So let's screw the little guy that has worked all his life to get that little small place. That's from Paul in Meridian. Also said, stop raising my interest rates. This was the other day because something happened in Meridian because something happened in Gulfport. Raise the interest rates in the affected areas. So I'm not sure what you were talking about that the other day on Wednesday, Paul. I saw that. Oh, you're talking about insurance, not interest. Okay, yeah, I get it. Well, yeah, I mean, they're the way they price all that stuff out, it gets kind of complicated. You're right, but there is specifics about the area and the risk and the claims and the losses and all that sort of stuff. But they also have to take into consideration, what do they have to get from the whole pool to insure everybody to make the math work. And you don't want to be insured with an insurance carrier that's not financially stable. That's a problem as well. This is another one on the C Spire text line. Mose says, Gerard, I saw in our local paper that the Board of Supervisors were considering lowering our millage rate because of the increase in funds with the new assessments. I've seen and heard the same, Mose, just to put folks' mind at ease a bit. Most of who I'm heard from the county government level talk about this reassessment of property values. I've also heard them say, if that's the case and we see a substantial increase of the total assessable value of property in the county, they will lower the millage rates to offset, which means that of the two factors in the multiplication there, they just balance each other's out so that there's really not a big change. Let's see. When I was a kid, my aunt worked as a bank teller, says Louie from the 662. I would go trade dollar bills for rolls of pennies and search through them looking for wheat pennies. I remember those. 1909 through 1959. I would roll the other pennies back up, mark them with a magic marker, and trade those rolls in for unchecked rolls. I currently have over 1,000 wheat pennies. That's cool. Thanks for sharing that. So do you think he is prioritizing his political bias over economic well-being of America on the C Spire text line? I think that's in reference to Jay Powell. I don't think Mr. Powell is fond of Donald Trump. I'll say that for starters.
He's done nothing to avoid that appearance.
Agree. And so while I can't speak, of course, for him, in an explicit way. I haven't sat down and had a conversation with him. It's easy to reach this conclusion because of what he did just before the election and what he's not doing now. I think all that makes at least the case to believe that he's placing politics over the best interest of the country. So he's got some splaining to do. If Trump hadn't publicly pushed Powell, I believe he would have been more likely to cut rates in order to maintain the appearance of independence. I guess maybe, but that shouldn't be a factor either, honestly. He could work with the Fed governors to cut rates, and then, as he always does with his hour-long speech that are always so boring, I tune in, I find them interesting. He could explain all that and justify and rationalize that action. So that's weak on his part. You're the Fed chairman. Figure it out, right? We're coming right back.
From the Seabrook Paint.
Gerard Gibert. Going beyond the headlines, breaking down the stories that matter to Mississippi. Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi.
So good. One of these nights, listen to that harmony, man. I'm trying to talk the band into playing that. We're trying to determine if we're brave enough to attempt those miraculous harmonies you hear there.
You just got to get some balloons with helium.
To get to that level of falsetto is something, isn't it? And that's, of course, the great Don Henley on the lead vocals playing the drums. And that's a pretty tough little sequence of licks there on the hi-hat and the snare. He's good with that. He uses that a lot. You know, everybody's got a style, and he's got that particular style that you can detect. And it's fun to play, too. I can do that. I just can't sing and do it at the same time. That's just serious talent to do that.
One or the other has to be second nature at that point.
That's exactly right, where you don't have to think about it. I'm not so good on the drums that I don't have to think about it. And there's photos on social media, great shots, as I told you, that Corey Eubanks, Dan Eubanks, Representative Eubanks' wife took. And in one of those, I look like I'm grimacing a bit, on the face, and said, Troy, why are you so unhappy? He said, I'm concentrating to get this right. It's, just your facial expressions, of course, reflect that. And I look like I'm thinking hard, and I am, because I'm not that second nature. I'm not Don Henley, right? Oh, man. I tell you what it does, and you know this, it makes you appreciate just how good they are. Anybody at that level, like in anything, athletics, for example, doing this. I mean, you're freaky when you're able to do that kind of stuff. And it's second nature to you like that. It just comes naturally, as they say. That's the way God made us. It's kind of cool.
Especially when you compare live musical performances, and they're doing it live, and it sounds pretty much just like they're doing the album. Because there are those concerts you go to, and it's like, yeah, you're just kind of phoning this in.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's disappointing, honestly, because you have in your mind what that sounds like, and you're prepared for it. And you don't hear that guitar riff, and they got, I'm a little creative. What do you call it? What do poets call it? When
creative license.
Yeah, creative license. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, so I guess they take assert a little creative license. Like, that's not what it sounds like. That the one I've listened to a million times.
Which, I mean, in fairness, if you play the same thing 500 times in 400 different cities,
you're
going to want to change things up, but if you change it up too much, you run the risk of turning off your audience paid to hear what they like.
Because if you don't happen to like the way that you did that, you just play it the right way, the way it was recorded. We only get one time at it for a bunch of money. So, yeah, it's a balancing act there for sure. On the C Spire text line, backing up a bit, you were talking about perhaps eliminating the chain gangs. Is that being just sort of piloted now, or is that a done deal?
I'm fairly certain that's going to be a rule change, but yeah, I think I wasn't paying attention to the NFL game. It was on in the background, and I remember looking up going, they're measuring with the cameras. They're drawing a little yellow line on the screen.
Yeah.
Better not using the chains. So I guess maybe they'll still have the chains on there in case something digital breaks down, but yeah.
Okay. Because on the C Spire text line, Keith and JSS, from what I understood, the chain gang would still be on the sideline. They just would not be used for measurements. And you're right. That may be like a fallback or some sort of redundancy in case the technology fails, and then, in which case you'd have to stop the whole game. So it makes sense that would be the case.
Kind of like at NBA games where they've got the backup backboards in the walkway.
Yeah, that's right.
Concourse.
Because it used to break. Does that happen as much as it used to, those acrylic backboards?
Well, Shaq's
the whole
not
thing
in the league
down
anymore, so no. I mean, it still happens on occasion.
Just shatter right in the middle of the game, right? Oh, okay, sweep that up and bring in a new one. Yeah, that's a good point. Let's see here. Yes, it was a Ferrari Daytona, talking about Miami Vice. Then Ted Nugent blew it up, and they got the white Testarossa. That's right. Kevin from Brandon informs Phil Collins owns the largest collection of Texas Alamo relics and history in the world. Wow, I didn't know that. Pretty cool. Don't forget about Elvis on Miami Vice. I don't remember that. Did he make a cameo appearance there, or was he playing a character?
Well, he was long gone by the time Miami Vice came around. But Elvis was
right.
Sonny.
That's right. That was the 80s.
Pet alligator.
What was the year? 77? Was that the year of Elvis's death, I think? I remember. I was in the hall of the fraternity house up at Ole Miss when we found out about it.
Yeah, Crockett had a pet alligator named Elvis.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. Okay.
The watchgator.
Of course, had to have a pet.
Watchdog.
It's Miami. Everybody has pet alligators, right? Oh, man. What else we got here on the C Spire text line? Tim in Cleveland, you should have played Bing Crosby's song, Bye, 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 a Bond. Oh, man. Talking about bonds earlier. Oh, let's see what else we got. This back and forth about who is requesting it gives the Board of Supervisors cover, talking about going out and reassessing property values in the counties. That's from Andy in Tupelo. Maybe, I guess. But, Andy, why would you think the supervisors want to raise taxes? Do you think that, I mean, other than, hey, if we had more money, we could do more in the county, and most of the money that's at the county level, honestly, which is a relatively small portion of where ad valorem property taxes are used, they mainly fund school districts. That's the top. If you look at your property tax bill and you see the apportionment of your property tax invoice, you'll see that most of it goes to the school district that the property is located in, and then next the county, and then next would be to the city. By the way, Dan in Hattiesburg wants to hear the Logical song from Dan in Hattiesburg.
Yeah, I got it in the hopper, and that would be the last possible request from the All Hit Request line because everything's booked. Okay.
Gerard, Jeff says, when are you going to be on Newsmax again? I was on Monday. I had to hop in my car and situate my phone on my windshield to do an interview. That was Monday. And it just happens randomly, Jeff. They'll typically call me the day, maybe a couple of days warning when they want me to come on, and always appreciate the opportunity to do so on Monday. And that's when we were talking about this loony school board president, I think, and one of the school boards in Florida that was celebrating the death of Hulk Hogan. Just another MAGA person, one less MAGA person, I think is what they said, something to that effect. And I went on a rant Monday, I want to say, Rhino, right after that. Maybe it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday after I did the Newsmax interview about this assassination culture in this country, which has certainly consumed many on the left. Because during this Newsmax interview, there was another individual. It's kind of set up that way that is more of a leftist, and I represent right philosophy and values. And she basically said, no, there's really not an assassination culture in this country. And that's when the host, Bianca De La Garza, said, well, I've got a poll right here that said like 34% of Democrats think it's okay to assassinate certain people if it achieves the outcome that you seek, such as the United Healthcare CEO, such as Donald Trump, an attempt to, in fact, made on his life. And in this case, celebrating the death of Hulk Hogan simply because he leans to the right. I think he had a change of heart somewhere along the line, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he's always been that way.
Well, that wasn't the only reason the left doesn't like him. He was also caught in a leaked sex tape using a racial slur that ultimately is the reason you no longer read any articles from Gawker, because Hulk Hogan sued them into oblivion because they refused to take down the leaked sex tape of him and some other dude's wife.
The fundamental problem with the left in this country is that they tend to celebrate and just get great satisfaction over anything negative that comes from the right. They do not have the best interest of America or Americans in their hearts or in their minds. In fact, quite the opposite. Whatever advances their political agenda. Final segment next.
The one Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
What a great tune. Responsible, practical. Supertramp. I rushed out and bought that album when it was released. That would have been, 77, 78? Breakfast in America. They sold a gazillion of them. And it's one of those where every track was just fantastic. Logical song. The Eagles' Hell Freezes Over tour in New Orleans was awesome, says Mose. I wish I could have seen him, man. I know it was. I heard a lot of people that attended said the same thing. Hey, Gerard, really enjoy the show, Bob in Itawamba writes. You know the Fed chairman has got a board, I think, that votes on, and so maybe he's not all to blame if people are in the camp that think rates need to be lowered. Just my thoughts. Hope you have a great weekend. No, you're absolutely right, Bob. And we have discussed that. I've shared that on the show before, that to get the rate lowered, that requires a vote by what's called the Federal Open Market Committee, the FOMC. They meet and they discuss any actions with respect to the benchmark interest rate that the Federal Reserve controls. And so it can be heavily influenced, make no mistake, by the Fed chairman. But in general, you got to get a majority of the Fed governors that serve on the Open Market Committee to enact any sort of changes to the interest rates. What did happen, however, this past week, I think for the first time in a long time, is that the decision was not unanimous. There were a couple of governors that did dissent on keeping rates the same. They wanted to lower rates, but they were outvoted. But if the chairman wants to, I think they can wield a lot of persuasive power over the other governors, the other Federal Reserve Bank presidents. But you're right. It's not a unilateral decision, but they do have an awful lot of influence. On the C Spire text line, I was talking about the photo of me playing yesterday with the rather grimaced, stressed facial expression says, have you ever watched Mick Fleetwood's face when he's drumming? Yeah, that's a good point. Usually his mouth's open. I'll do that sometimes too, and he's got his eyes kind of peeled wide open. It is fun to watch him. You can tell he's big time into it. What a great drummer, of course, he is. So, yeah, it's a good way to put it there. I'll just have to tell folks, because a lot of people are asking me, Gerard, why are you so unhappy? Why you look mad here? I'll say, oh, yeah, I'm just channeling my inner Mick Fleetwood. I do play the same brand of drums, DW drums. Not that I'm anywhere close to the great Mick Fleetwood. There's so many good ones through the years, man. It feels like we've kind of lost that art, as is the case in the playing of many musical instruments, for sure. Freddie Mercury was asked one time, how does it feel to be the best singer in the world? And he said, I don't know, ask Steve Perry. I, of course, would agree with that. I'm biased towards the voice himself, Steve Perry. But isn't there also, I don't know if it's folklore, Rhino, or fact, wasn't there another question? Was it asked of Eric Clapton about who the greatest guitarist was? He's widely, I should say, thought to be that. There's something that, I can't remember if it's somebody asked and they said Clapton.
They asked Hendrix and he said ask Clapton.
Okay, that's what it was. All right, gotcha. Hendrix, of course, incredible guitarist. Died at age 27, I think, right? If I'm not mistaken, after performing at Woodstock, which is coming up here pretty soon. You have to crank that up, some Woodstock tunes. Crosby, Stills, and Nash with the title song Woodstock, written by Joni Mitchell.
Scientists have tried to quantify the greatest voice of all time, and the closest they've come to a consensus is you have a male and female vocalist that are considered to have had the largest ranges.
Yeah.
And those two are Freddie Mercury and Whitney Houston.
Really? Because I always have heard included in that list Barbra Streisand. Apparently can sing equally well in all octaves. And, of course, the great Karen Carpenter. How do you leave her out? My personal opinion, the greatest female vocalist of all time. Left this earth way too early, man. God, what a sad deal. I think Steve Perry maybe doesn't have the range of a Freddie Mercury, but perhaps the voice quality, I would say, is better. It may just be I like that style of music better. That's fine as well. But folks, by the way, Larry Amai says, I saw Supertramp Jackson in the early 80s. Good for you, Larry. I bet that was a good one. Folks, we had a lot of fun this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Back with you again on Monday. Have a great weekend. Until then, stay safe and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.